that was something that I truly enjoyed doing. I was very privileged to be part of that. Diamonds in the rough. So that was on the gender aspect, representation, and impact. So I'll just pause here. If there are any clarifications, any questions thus far? Any questions on this aspect that I've shared with you?
I'll just add a comment to the Diamond in the Making, because I was fortunate to do a few programs with the women who were in the Diamond in the Making. I work with a lot of organizations where women connect with me offline to talk about their issues because they're not able to talk about it openly to the leaders in the organization. This was one forum, the year-long program, where they could talk about anything with you and with the other leaders of the organization. So even as a comparison, I think it was a great initiative.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's very important that a leadership team and the leader himself walks the talk on this, and he's in that room, and this is not something he delegates, because only then does the organization take that commitment very, very seriously. So that was on gender, and I'm passionate about that, and I hope to keep working and pushing the envelope. Now in my bigger role, I'm looking after close to 6,000 stores across 55 countries. And in some some countries, it's the reverse. Like in Thailand, we have all female employees and female managers, and the men are running around for cover. So some places, it's the other way. But the core issue remains the same. That how can we have an organization just represent the demographic richness that we have around us? It's as simple as that. Yeah, go ahead. Well, not at the moment, but I think most definitely we'll get there. Yeah, not at the moment.
I think it has been cropping up where male employees are walking up to the HR asking that when you have maternity leaves for six months or so, and then why do you have only a week? Because we are in a nuclear family and we are supporting the same responsibility. So it is not just about having women. I think it is about looking from a different perspective as well.
I agree with you. I think it should not be black and white, male or female. I think it's sort of, I would say it's a greater sensitization and an awareness of the different needs of different employees at the very core, which manifests itself in the form of gender differences, ideological differences, and so on. But I principally agree with you. So, yeah.
With the diversity and with this law coming in, you will see that a lot of companies will have diversity always includes costing, because if you look at the Indian market, many of the companies which operates nationally only, they are not having too much of costs available with them to support that diversity. So what's your suggestion in that?
Well, I really believe that this comes down to conviction, and I don't think everything that you do can be measured in terms of input, output, benefit, cost ratio. I think we have, I always believe leaders have a bigger commitment to the global world community agenda, and it's not only about shareholder profits. And I think it depends on how you measure it. I would argue if you look at it over a longer period of time, you're definitely going to be far better off as a company if you're more diverse than if you're less. So I think it comes down to leaders, having the wisdom to understand that and having compassion in their hearts to realize the importance of replicating the demographics of what they have around them in the company that they steward. I think it just makes common sense to me. Because if you have that, you will have a fairer environment, more balanced environment, more respectful environment. And I dare say if many companies do that, I think you'll have a much better country as well. So moving on to disability. So like I said, my daughter was, well, not technically disabled, but she got more and more disabled because she was unable to breathe. And 5 years before, when she was 13, she was told she's going to die in 5 years' time, because the lung would just get harder and harder and harder, and then she wouldn't be able to breathe. And as that lung got harder and harder, I saw her. She could not run, then she started walking, then she couldn't walk, then she was on a wheelchair, then she couldn't be on a wheelchair, she had full-time oxygen, then she was on a bed, and she was, just faded away, So I know what it means to a parent when I had to take her in a wheelchair shopping, and you don't have wheelchair access. I know what it means to be a parent of a kid who other people stare at, and wonder, who's this freak? and they can't get past that outward manifestation of illness. I know what that feels like. And therefore, I was, I had compassion in my heart for that. So, interesting story, I went to Calcutta, and I went to a KFC there a couple of years back, maybe 6, 7 years back. And I go, and across the counter there's a girl, a very pleasant looking girl, and as I do, I shake her hand and I thank her for what she's doing, and she says, I can't hear and I can't speak. So I'm stunned by that. And she doesn't let go of my hand. Her eyes start tearing up. So I called the manager and I said, I don't understand what she's trying to say. So he knew sign language, and she said to him that I want to thank you. This is how they do thank you in sign language. I want to thank you for having given me the chance to live a life of respect. Because I'm a woman, it's hard enough being a woman, but I'm also disabled. That's like a double whammy. So I'm able to come here and earn my fair share of living, and then go back with pride and contribute to the family where I live. I can't thank you enough. So when she shook my hand and I looked into her eyes, something really moved inside me. And I went back to my company and my leadership team, who I was very fortunate that they were all people who had also similar value system, of ambition and compassion. And I said, let's just make a difference in the lives of the hearing and speech impaired. And they said, why? I said, why not? So how does it ladder up to our brand? I said, who cares? And sometimes we think too much. And I really believe that one small action is better than, a gazillion thoughts. Do just one thing. Do something small, but do it, Don't just think about it. Do it. So the team said, okay, but then we said, we had learned from a gender example I gave you of shocking the system. So we have to do something that truly sort of does it from the heart. So this is not like a CSR, tick in the box. Do I have budget for it? And how much will it cost me? And think through everything. And then only I will decide and make a proposal and the board will approve. None of that. We said what we're going to do is, we don't want to hire few hearing and speech impaired employees and stick them in the back. No, that's not what we want to do. What we're going to do is we're going to make some special stores. In these special KFC stores, the hearing and the speech impaired employees will be in majority. So our target was, 70% should be hearing and speech impaired. And the hearing and speech impaired employees will be expected to do all the jobs that hearing employees do, because hearing and speech impairment is a handicap of communication. It is not an impairment of competence. On the contrary, hearing and speech impaired employees are some of the best employees that we have. They're most committed, they're punctual, they're disciplined, they're loyal, they're grateful. They never want to leave you. You would absolutely love to have employees with those attributes. Well, they're fantastic. I mean, their senses, because they channel their energy in a different way. And I think they just, and because they feel grateful for what they have, their whole work orientation is at a different level. And these kids actually battle a lot. They can't drive themselves. They're not allowed to drive in India. I don't know if you knew that. If you're hearing and speech impaired, you can't drive, right? And therefore, how do you travel? And you're from a poor family. How are you supposed to get to work? Many of these kids would travel 2 hours to come for work. One way. It's crazy, right? So we said we're going to make this like the heaven on earth for them. So this store, when they walk in, is their store. Anybody who works there has to learn sign language, and the other way around, to get along with them. Yeah. And then we redesigned these stores, so we had sign language. And so and we said we're not going to advertise this is a special store. Please be nice to our employees. No. Treat them with respect. We don't want pity, right? They're as competent as anybody else. If you can't see through that, shame on you. So people used to come, and the employee at the cashier would say, good morning or good evening. And then he would say, I can't hear or speak, and here's my mat. Please order your food here. And people used to get stunned. And then they used to be happy and surprised and compassionate, because all of us deep down are good people. We want to do good in this world, right? So the response we got from the customers, phenomenal. The response we got from our employees, unbelievable. And so we had to redesign the kitchens, by the way. We had to put light systems, because obviously you can't hear, you can't shout at each other, you know. And a gazillion different designs we invested in. We had to invest in new training methodology. Imagine everything had to be redone in sign language. But we were, like I said, we do it because it's difficult. You know, we don't do it because it's easy. We do it because it's the right thing to do. So we started this, and then we were very encouraged by it. And by the way, slowly the reputation grew, and many employees would come to us and say, we want to join your company because you do this. You know, the millennials. And if you asked, in my company, I'd ask very often people, what are you most proud of? They would never say brand, they would never say profits. Profits, we didn't have a problem because we were not making a lot of money. But their whole thing was, you know, we feel proud to tell people about our initiative of the hearing and speech impaired. So we opened 20 such stores, and we had, I think, over 400 employees, or have 400 employees. I don't know the exact count right now. And it did very well. So, and then I realized, so we thought, okay, this is good now, but it's not good enough. Can we now vertically integrate our efforts on hearing and speech impaired? And as I had sort of dug deeper, I found that we don't have special schools in our country. I don't know if you knew this. It was a shock to me that hearing and speech impaired, or not enough, I'm sure there must be a few, that hearing and speech impaired kids go to normal schools, then they get totally disheartened, demotivated, and they're dropouts, you know, many of them. And then they're dropouts, and then they are not employable. And then they have a life where they just sit at home and do nothing. So we said, we're going to make a difference. We're going to actually make the school dropout hearing and speech impaired kids employable. And we opened Yum Academies in all of the big cities in which we operate. And these Yum Academies were nothing. This was the office on a weekend when there's nobody there. And we would, you know, we'd ask for volunteers. We hired just one trainer who knew sign language. So it was kind of a low-cost exercise. So it doesn't cost a lot of money. It just requires heart, you know. If you have the intent, you can always find a way. So we said we're going to do it. And the employees themselves volunteered and said, yes, on a weekend, we don't care, we're going to come, we love this. And so before we knew it, we have these, I think, 5 or 6 maybe Yum Academies in every major city. And we started making these young, unemployable, hearing and speech impaired youth employable. We developed a program, a 5-week program, where we would teach them sanitation, hygiene, personal grooming, you know, how to interact with guests, the basics. And then we would not charge them anything. And we would tell them that you're not even obliged to work with us, right? So once you pass out, go wherever you want. If you want to work with one of our stores, you have to interview for it. But, you know, so it's actually a pure act of making a difference, you know. So we had, I think, in 2 years, maybe 150 graduates. Some people can say, well, that's not a lot. I would say, well, it's more than 0, you know. And I really believe this, that, you know, even if it was one kid, you know, let's do something. So we went to Yum Academies, and then these kids, by the way, are, you know, wonderful kids, and they have an incredible sense of humor. So I was sitting once at a round table with them, the hearing and speech impaired kids, and I asked them, I said, how do you gossip about other people? This must be very boring to say E-I-O-U and all that, sign language, you know. By the time you spell somebody's name, you've gone to sleep. So they said, don't worry, we have shortcuts. So I said, what? They looked at their area coach, who was a large pot-bellied guy. I said, so his name was Bhupinder. So I said, when you talk about Bhupinder here, what's the shortcut? He said, no, we can't tell you. I said, come on. Bhupinder also, you know, went red in his face. I said, come on, Bhupinder, have a sense of humor. He said, okay, we say B, B, this is how they sign B. B for Bhupinder, and we say this. Everyone knows it's Bhupinder. Bhupinder, Bhupinder immediately sucked in his stomach. And then I said, so how do you talk about me? No. I said, come on. They said, really? I said, yeah. So they said, okay, short guy, long nose. So, and then I asked them, okay, so now that you're happy about everything that we've done, what more can we be doing? They said, well, we want to grow. And I realized that now these kids have been here with us for 3-4 years, and they're now thinking, okay, what's next? So hearing and speech impairment is not an impairment of ambition. It's not an impairment of dreams. So we said, if you're truly committed to the cause, we have to make this possible. So for this, I had to write to my chairman, CEO, a dear friend, David Novak, who also has a big heart. And he gave me a grant and he says, do it, man. So I said, I have one dream that by 2015, before I leave India, I want to have, 900 stores, but I want to have one restaurant general manager who's deaf. So the whole company sort of rallied around it. And we took a boy called Shrikant, and I'll show his video shortly. And he was hearing and speech impaired, joined us, became a shift manager. And normally it would take us 6 months to train a hearing employee to become a manager. You can imagine that when you translate everything into sign language, and you have to have a teacher who teaches you, it took him almost 2 years. But we do it because it's hard, right? We don't do it because it's easy. And in 2015, we were not able to achieve the goal we had, but in 2016, we did. And we now have probably the world's first hearing and speech impaired restaurant general manager.